Hi everyone, my name is Jason Fabok, and on this episode, we're going to take a behind-the-scenes look at the brand new DC Essentials action figure line from DC Collectibles. I had the incredible opportunity to design these figures alongside my friend and sculptor, Paul Harding. So in this video, we're going to look at how a rough sketch turns into a 3D sculpture and eventually ends in a finished action figure. I'm going to take you through the process from start to finish. So if you are ready, let's go. I've been working professionally in the comic book industry now for the past 8 years, and I've spent the majority of that time with DC Comics. I've had the opportunity to illustrate some of the biggest characters and some of the biggest books that DC publishes. I worked on Justice League with Jeff Johns, Batman with Tom King, Swamp Thing with Tom King. But one of the things that I've always wanted to do was design action figures and statues and collectibles and toys. As you can see, I'm in my office right now, and it's just filled to the brim with action figures and toys and statues and things I've collected since I was a little kid, all the way up to things I bought last week. And I was really hoping I would one day have the opportunity to design some action figures, to see my artwork alive in 3D in my hands. So all of this started in early 2017. I was approached by a guy that I consider one of my favorite people at DC Comics, Ray Tyra, who was the project lead on the brand new DC Essentials line. And I probably said yes immediately. And then he added that Paul Harding was going to be doing the sculpts. And I've been a big fan of Paul's work for years. I followed him on Instagram and Twitter. So I really wanted to work with Paul. And Ray had said they wanted to do an Essentials line. In this line, they wanted to just go with classic designs, some that are contemporary, some that are classic, and kind of create just a really beautiful action figure based on some of the biggest and best characters that DC has to offer. So step one in the whole creation process of the action figure was to create what they call in the business a buck body. Okay, buck naked. It's essentially a naked human anatomy drawing. And what this would be is this would kind of provide the base for what all of the figures would sort of be molded around. So I had to create a male and a female. You know, they wanted me to draw the way that I would approach the anatomy of a character, muscles, you know, the proportions, that kind of thing. Ray wanted me to push the anatomy a little more than maybe I would in a comic book, really show, you know, all the little tiny details, all the muscle detail that I possibly could, because he knew that when it was shrunk down into a smaller form, and especially when it was printed and molded, that it would soften. It's called softening. It would lose some of those hard details. And so he wanted there to be lots in there so that even a simplistic figure like Flash, who's essentially just the buck body with a custom head, would be super detailed and would really just jump when you saw light hit it and the shadows, you know, casting against the figure and against the form. He really wanted that detail to be picked up by the eye. So I did a drawing that was essentially a turnaround, a front, a side, and a back. And we did close-ups of the heads. We did close-ups of the hands. I used a lot of anatomy books, and I was using some anatomy reference to try and get the best looking and truest anatomy that I possibly could, and yet still stick to my style and the way that I like to draw a character and the way that I like them to look. So from there, Paul took my drawings and he began to work those drawings out in a 3D sculpture. He created essentially the buck model as I had drawn it. And we started to see that there was little problems. Maybe we need to push the neck forward. Maybe the arm needs to be longer, or the feet need to be bigger. Stretch the torso, increase the mass of the top. I was really happy with his version of the character and his version of the buck body. And I really felt it gave us a really strong base for the rest of the figures to build on top of them. So I believe the next step after that was articulation. Essentially what they did was they engineered the buck body that we had created into an articulated action figure. And then when I saw DC's little demo of the articulated buck body, where they took the model and they started posing him in all kinds of awesome poses, and that's when everything clicked with me, and I realized that fans were going to be really excited to have these figures. And I had joked with them, why don't you guys release the buck body as a drawing tool for artists? I'm hoping that maybe they'll do that. So I think these figures will actually be very good for that, for artists who want something that they can pose up and help with their drawings. So step 2 was then to take that turnaround sketch that I had done and start drawing characters. Use that as a base and start drawing the costume over top. So Ray gave me a big list of all these characters. There were quite a few. So I think the first one I did was Batman. I essentially sketched, the head from front, side, back, put the belt on, sent that off. I did that with the Flash, and I did that with Deathstroke, and Superman, and Wonder Woman. And I went down through the list and just kind of hammered out each one. In the end, I think all the drawings really turned out well and gave Paul a really good starting point to now work on the final action figures. So after I sent all the designs into Paul, he had to start the task of creating all these characters in 3D. But he could now take the buck model that we had done and use that as his base. He was essentially then, reworking the head sculpt so that it looked like Batman or Flash or Reverse Flash or Deathstroke. Maybe he would take the arm and resculpt it so it looked like Batman's gauntlet or like Deathstroke's arm. He would add the boots onto the different characters that he was designing, adding a cape. Sometimes characters like the Flash and Reverse Flash were just the buck body. They didn't need that much customizing. So they had a custom head, maybe a different hand, and that was about it. The rest would be applied in paint with the digital printing process that they're doing now on the action figures. So I started to get back these really cool renders that Paul was sending me of these different characters, and I was just so blown away to see Paul's work. To see my artwork turned into a 3D model on the computer was really awesome. And I like how Paul was interpreting my art. He was adding some really neat angles to the character. You'll notice that the cheeks are very angular and the chin is angular. And this adds a lot of shadow depth to the character. And I think he did that after looking at my artwork and seeing that I like to use a lot of black. He wanted these characters to have a lot of black when light hits them. And to do that, you have to add nice sharp corners and sharp angles. And he added these angles to be actually sharper than what you might normally want them to be, because he knew that when it was molded, there would be softening and you wouldn't get as sharp of an angle as you see in the 3D model. So then it became a waiting game. Paul had done his job. DC was now taking these models and trying to create prototypes of them. I remember bothering Ray every once in a while saying, hey, how are the prototypes coming? I'd kill to see something. And eventually I got to see them, and I was really impressed by them. So after all of that process, the sketches, the back and forth with Paul, the 3D models that he did, the prototypes, the painted prototypes, we get the final action figure. Here's the Batman action figure right here. It was so much fun to create something like this. I remember the first time I opened the box and held it in my hands, I was amazed at actually how big they were. I thought they were going to be smaller. I don't know why. Really proud, really happy with the look of these. And in some future videos, we're going to look at each one of these figures. We're going to do a little spotlight on each of these 4 from wave number 1. I'm very proud of them, and I'm very proud of the work that Paul did, and Ray and Jim Fletcher and the whole team over at DC Collectibles. In closing, I just want to say how overjoyed I am at this whole process. It's something that I wanted to do ever since I was a little kid. I'm hoping that this will lead to more and more projects like this. I know I've done a lot of different designs and sketches for this line. It seems to be pre-ordering very well, and I think DC is planning on making even more figures. In fact, I've seen some of the stuff behind closed doors. It looks incredible, and I can't wait for more of it to be revealed. I know these figures hit store shelves very soon. They might already be out by the time you're watching this video. Check them out, pick them up. Let me know what you think of them. So thanks for checking out this video, and we'll see you next time.